This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carinante.
Welcome to the Yanks Go Yard podcast. I'm Adam Weinrib alongside Thomas Carinante. I wear glasses now. That might last about a day and a half. Happy New Year. We got our resolutions locked. Hopefully trying to lose weight, maybe trying to gain weight. I don't know what your body type that you're starting with is. Maybe some of us got to be gainers this year. Either way, no better time than the present to be locked in on what you need. And that's why we are laying out the Yankees New Year's resolutions. They've still got holes to fill. They got a bullpen hole. They got an infield hole. But they've got to be patient. They got to be judicious in attacking their needs. We can argue all day about whether they are better without Juan Soto or more complete without Juan Soto. But guess what? My number one resolution, and we're going to obviously talk about more, up to the moment things in detail. But my number one resolution, we leave Juan Soto in 2024 as long as we can. We all know the reality of that situation. The Yankees wanted him. We wanted him to remain a Yankee. He didn't come back. They'll see him in the Subway Series. They might get lucky and see him in the World Series someday. He's a Met for 15 years. When he opts out, they're going to raise his annual salary. We're never going to have to really think about him again if we don't want to. Sometimes we will, right? Sometimes we will. We're going to face him. Maybe in the postseason. Definitely in the regular season. He's going to be in All-Star games. He's going to make the Hall of Fame. But my top tier resolution is just we gave him the money. They gave him the money. He went somewhere else. So like Aaron Judge did in his 2024 Instagram wrap-up post, got Stanton in there, got Rizzo in there, got Luke Voit and Jonathan Holder in there. I didn't see a photo of Juan Soto, and he was pretty integral to the Yankees' run to the World Series. And you know what Aaron Judge said? Probably talked to the PR staff, said, is it a better idea if I don't have him in or if I do have him in? And they were all sort of uniformly like, he's not on your team anymore, so you can kind of do whatever you want. It might be good to move on without him. And Judge was like, great, that's what I was hoping you would say. He's out. Old man gray hair Holder is in, and we're forgetting about Juan Soto.
Verdugo?
Verdugo was involved, might be back, probably won't be, but you never know. Still available on the market. Either way, I'm treating him the way Judge did, and we're going to talk about some more resolutions in a bit, as well as some potential solutions to getting some money off the books so the Yankees can go a little harder after these resolutions. 2 o'clock Eastern on a Monday or a Thursday, whether in the new year or last year. That's how you know it's time for the Yanks Go Yard podcast on YouTube. Please subscribe if you have not. Please track us down on all podcast platforms. You can subscribe there. Plenty of spots where you may subscribe to us. Thank you for joining us, Thomas Carinante. What is up? What is your New Year's resolution?
Ooh, what is my? First of all, Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. It's going to be another long year. When is it not? My New Year's resolution this year, I didn't really have one.
So, no, I don't think I've actively
I never do it.
one.
I never do it.
Ever.
It's cheesy to me. You should start a resolution at any point in your life when you feel like there is an inflection point. That's my feeling. The new year just gives you an excuse to put it into action. I hope people use the new year as an excuse to put it into action. Earlier in the year, I vowed to be a little bit more positive with the Yankees. I think some of my tone has changed a little bit, or at least I'm hoping. Just not as doom and gloom as I used to be all the time, because look, things are not that bad. They could be better. Sure. That's the definition of life. Should get in the gym a little bit more often, but who shouldn't? Should read a little bit more, but again, who shouldn't? Mm-hmm. Should stop spending more time on my phone, but also who shouldn't? So,
but again, if you waited till January 1st to put these plans into action and just didn't work on yourself last year in November, then I got to say, what are you, some kind of loser? Yeah.
All right, losers unite. Let's get it together, guys. But yeah, it's a new year, folks. There is sort of a different energy. The calendar turns. You say, I'm starting fresh. Yankees, they started to start fresh in December. I would say that was pretty much the turning point for them when they learned the fate. So the Yankees' New Year's resolutions, in my opinion, have been ongoing for a month now. They had no choice. They had to put plans into action that were perhaps unexpected or at least planned for. And now we're looking at a much different team for next year. I think if I were to be harsh in my Yankees assessment, a lot of the resolutions that we are going to apply right now to this team should have been put into action the second Juan Soto came into the fold last December.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we can't go back in time. We cannot change the thinking of the organization, the front office, the coaching staff, what have you. So we're going to have to build with what we have right now. Maybe the front office spends less time on their phone and less time in data sheets, and they just have a little bit more fun. Go out for a team bowling night. Get a limo, get drunk on the town, and see who pukes first. I don't know. Just do something a little bit more interpersonal, I would say. That would be my resolution for the front office, who I think has perhaps created some of the problems that we've dealt with over the last couple of years. Really, this is New Year's resolutions for the Yankees since 2020. So I'm hoping they do a 5-year turnaround after the next 24 hours. But we'll see. I don't know. We got a couple things on the docket here today. There's still some lingering news, rumors hanging around the Yankees for now. We're trying to parse through what makes sense and kind of what doesn't, and where the Yankees need to move with intention and where they need to maybe be a little bit more reactive, which they're used to doing, but they got to apply that a little bit more effectively. But we'll start it off. Where do you think they need to go right now in terms of your number one resolution for them? What is steadfast in this moment? What needs to be fixed?
Yeah, I think it's the most important hole on the team. It's the lingering infield hole. And I think I don't want to just say and preach like, oh, you got to fill it. Can't go with Oswaldo and DJ, right? That can't be the duo. That can't even be the solo. If you hear me say, well, it can't be a platoon of Oswaldo and DJ, and you're like, okay, great. So just Oswaldo then? I'm like, no, neither one of those. And I love Oswaldo Cabrera. But I want to go further than just saying you got to fill that hole, whether it's a third baseman or second baseman, got to do it. Because for me, you have to stay patient in your chase for an additional infielder. And I think we're all somewhat guilty of this. We all need, shock treatment, immediate dopamine hit of moves coming in, coming out. For me, let those be the relievers. Let those be Tim Hill or Andrew Chafin or Kyle Hart. We talked about a little bit last week, at least on the site, like lefty coming over from Korea. The Yankees are one of 5 teams interested. Maybe swingman. Interesting. That's great. Let the bullpen pieces, you got to add those guys. You got to add them on the relative cheap. We know Matt Blake can uncover unheralded arms, and we know he's going to, because that's his favorite thing to do. Sign a lefty reliever, yeah, and then let's let that be the early January dopamine hit. Let's get that done in the next week, and let's be patient in the infield search, and do not lock in on a target like, say, Nolan Arenado, and turn it into an inevitability. Because we sort of nervously addressed that a couple of shows ago, because we thought the Yankees would. Not because we wanted them to, but because we thought, okay, here's Paul Goldschmidt, and this paves the path for Nolan Arenado to be a Yankee. And John Denton in St. Louis is saying it, and Mark Feinsand in New York is saying it. So it doesn't make that much sense, but is it an upgrade on the lowest possible bar? Of course it is. So let's take our medicine, get used to it now, and just move forward sort of knowing that Nolan Arenado is going to be our guy, and he will be an upgrade, even if he's a less than perfect fit and probably the worst possible splurge they can make at the position. Jack Curry threw cold water on that over Christmas, and now I'm just taking a week later, the chance to say, they're going to need to upgrade. I am confident that they will before the trade deadline. And the longer you wait, the more likely it is that a more palatable option comes on the table. And this leads right into what you're thinking. Like, over the last week, have been thinking about a lot more options. You've seen them circulating on Twitter in the Yankees verse. People starting to say, well, what about, hey, wouldn't that team? And things are going to change too. A team like the Padres might trade Dylan Cease in 2 weeks. Right now, they look like last year they're everybody's feel-good NL West contender. They were favored to beat the Dodgers in the eyes of some. They were up 2-1 in that series and let it get away, stopped hitting at the worst time. They have had financial constraints always, but they seem to wax and wane and go in and out. And right now we're at a point in time where they're maybe looking to maximize some rentals. So they might trade Dylan Cease, and they might decide it's teardown time. Like, there are plenty of teams with roster crunches that are only going to get worse. And especially like a team like the Rays with Brandon Lowe. The Rays probably think they have a chance to contend in the American League right now. Because who really the league that's getting better is the NL. The Rangers are taking steps forward and have turned themselves into accidentally like a top 6 team in the American League again after flaming out last year. The Red Sox have forgotten to add offense. They're going to get a right-handed bat at some point. I guess, but they lose Tyler O'Neill. They're banking on prospects, but they add Walker Buehler and Garrett Crochet. They're a top 5-6 team in the American League. The Rays could easily be thinking, if we keep Diaz, Yandy Diaz, we keep Lowe, we could just go to the playoffs. We could just win this league, I guess, by accident. But maybe an American League team or two makes a couple of big moves. Maybe somebody gets Santander. Maybe the Blue Jays get Santander and Bregman. Maybe somebody in the next couple of weeks makes the Rays position weaker. And then they decide, okay, you know what? We were going to hold out, but now we'll trade Brandon Lowe. And obviously, he's going to be expensive, right? You know, you can't have Lowe for not one of your top 3 prospects, but Roderick Arias for Brandon Lowe, I could stomach that. That's a 30 home bat in the Bronx. I'm into it. So just a call for patience, you know, not patience all the way through spring training and certainly not through the trade deadline, but don't convince yourself you need to jump on Nolan Arenado or another imperfect fit right now. And we're going to talk a bunch of names in a bit. This bleeds right into your version of this resolution, but just say this goes for the team and the fans. Just like tight. Just because DJ LeMahieu's on the depth chart now doesn't mean he's going to be there in February. It's certainly not April. And just because Nolan Arenado is on your lips does not mean you got to start fitting him for his uniform. And the Yankees aren't thinking that way either.
No, I don't think they are. I think what they need to do is, it sounds obvious and it sounds stupid, but there needs to be a steadfast approach here. It's not just get somebody who can, okay, great, we can get Nolan Arenado. He's a big name. We could put him at third base. That works out. Like, would I be opposed to that? No, but I think that with the changes the Yankees have made, they still need offense, right? But they have prioritized defense in a fairly big manner, especially if they can move Jazz Chisholm back to second, especially if they could find another infielder that helps with that. But I think they need to go either fully offense first or fully defense first with whatever infielder comes next, whether it's third base or second base. I know people might bemoan going offense first because they've tried to do that and it's worked, but it hasn't worked to the degree that everybody was hoping. I'm thinking along the lines of, like, you sign Jose Iglesias or you trade for Luis Ariz and you put Luis Ariz at second and you stomach whatever you get out of that. Jazz Chisholm stays at third. Then you're looking at an offense that is pretty dominant top to bottom. Like, if you had a contact batting champion-esque Luis Ariz and you sacrifice defense at second base, like, realistically, how much defense are you sacrificing? Gleyber Torres led the AL in errors for 2 years out of the last 4 when he was with the Yankees. So, I mean, you want to talk about night and day with bats, it's Luis Ariz and Gleyber Torres. But I also think going defense first is great because the amount of games that this team lost last year because of head in the clouds or botched routine plays or people just being asleep would have been the difference between a lot. And it would have helped them tremendously in the playoffs, where every, nubber ground ball coming off the bat counts, where every line drive to center field counts, where every pop-up in foul territory counts, where every drop third strike counts. And for the most part, there were very good defenders on this team, but it wasn't the correct assortment. So if you're going to go for it this year, I think you put Jazz back at second as this option. Maybe you sign someone like I haven't even paid attention that much to the rest of the infield market because I've been so underwhelmed, but we saw Jose Iglesias with the Mets this past year. He was a revelation for them wherever they put him on defense. I know his bat came through as well. I'm not banking on that. He's not an offensive first player. I think we all know that. The best you're probably going to get out of him is, at this point, from 120 games sample size, is 265, which I would also take with limited power, some clutch hits here and there. But I think that's the defense first option that you look at. And if the Padres are serious about trading Luis Ariz, I understand it's an imperfect fit, but if you look at the potential flexibility there, Ariz can also play first base. So if Goldschmidt needs a day off, he gets the day off. Ariz goes to first, or Ben Rice goes to first. You got Giancarlo Stanton in the DH. He's going to need rest, or he's going to miss time for injury. I'd rather some sort of healthy rotation there with offensive-minded, capable players, if that's the route that they're going to go. But just don't go in between. Don't go with somebody, okay, this guy can fill the position and he's solid on defense and we think his bat could be all right on offense. No. One in either way direction, hardcore, and I think this team will be way better off with whatever approach it is.
Yeah, and the reason that we're not really paying attention to the free agent market for infielders is because it is like markedly terrible at this point.
Well, I pulled up the list right before we were on. It is pretty bad. I mean, look, you got Alex Bregman. I think that is an option that everybody wants, right? Everybody, not everybody, but no one's going to complain with Alex Bregman.
If he shows up, your complaints are going to be about ballpark fit, which he's killed the Yankees for years in any ballpark, and the length of the contract. No one's going to be like, if you're performatively angry that Alex Bregman shows up on next year's roster, then that's you're putting on a show. Like, you can't actually be upset with adding probably the second best offensive free agent available this offseason behind, again, someone who used to be on the Yankees whose name I don't recall. Gleyber Torres.
You're just complaining about regression years at that point, which is moot because, again, this team's window is within the next 2 to 3 years, and they need to capitalize on that. Bregman's prime is within the next 2 to 4 years.
Yeah. And when's the last time, by the way, that you've thought about the actual dead money that they're paying people this year, like Aaron Hicks and DJ and Stroman? Like that what you can't do is just stack money that you can't touch, like the Aaron Hicks money and the LeMahieu money. Like, goodness gracious. But then again, if you only have like one contract like that you're worried about, or two max, then you'll eventually be okay.
Yeah, and this will be the second if you count Max Fried. But again, I think Max Fried will be a capable pitcher in his mid to late 30s. Not going to be an ace, not going to be worth, whatever it is, $27 million, but that's the price you pay being the Yankees.
The price of pitching might also make it so that he even is worth that at that point for a 4.43 ERA or whatever.
Or you eat $7 million of that deal, you trade him away, someone takes him for 20 without a problem. Like, you get creative down the road, you worry about those problems later. On the offensive side, look, Josh Rojas just got signed by the Chicago White Sox. I thought that was a good defense first option. He was really good defensively for a team in the Mariners last year. He was non-existent offensively, and that's why they non-tendered him, because they needed to upgrade on offense. The Mariners' problems were offense. I think they scored the least runs in the league, if I'm not mistaken, or they were like bottom 3. It was something dreadful, and they missed the playoffs by a few games. They had the best starting rotation in the league. They had a really good defense. So that's a team right there that said, we have to revamp our approach. What we just did last year didn't work. We can't afford to have somebody at third base who's not producing offensively. We're going to revisit it. Could have been an opportunity for the Yankees to say, fuck it. We need to upgrade our defense overall. We need to improve at second base. We need to improve at third base. Let's sign him. That gives us a clear option as a starter. He's also flexible. He can move around the infield. They didn't opt for that, so it is what it is. You're not bringing John Birdie back. J.D. Davis is a free agent. Yohan Moncada, Nick Madrigal, Brian Anderson, Jace Peterson, Luis Urias. It gets worse, guys. Brandon Crawford, who retired. Nick Ahmed Rosario, who I actually think would be okay, but nothing special. Paul DeJong, Mason McCoy, Aledmus Diaz.
Mason McCoy, I think, is a guy from my MLB The Show create a player career mode. I don't think that's a guy, but the rest, it's like other than Ahmed
Kim is the only other one.
Yeah, other than Ahmed Rosario, it's like the DFA squad plus Ha-Seong Kim.
Ha-Seong Kim, who comes with injury concerns. So, that's where I would say no, because the Yankees have enough injury concerns every single year. We're always worried. Look, they just re-signed Jonathan Loaiza, which I wholeheartedly disagree with. You can't do that with somebody who might be out April and May, who could even be out through June. They don't know. It's a very unpredictable situation. And then at that point, Ha-Seong Kim, if he's dealing with shoulder issues, you're not going to want to put him at third base because that requires good arm strength.
Yeah. Ow, my shoulder.
Ouch. Whoops. My surgically repaired shoulder.
I wish I didn't have to throw so much from third base, but alas, my shoulder.
The second base option, who could you stomach here, I guess? I don't even know. Ha-Seong Kim, our friend from Korean baseball.
Somebody's getting him tomorrow, though.
It's got to happen.
That's the deadline is tomorrow, or he does not come to America.
Yeah.
So he'll be a Mariner probably, but I don't think we're even talking to him. But we'll find out next week. Yeah.
Yep. Nicky Lopez, Whit Merrifield, Jorge Polanco, Brendan Rodgers, Brandon Drury, Adam Frazier, Tony Kemp, Joey Wendell. Answer is no. So you got to either go something crazy on offense where you make this team a juggernaut, like literally fearful 1 through 9, which they've done a really good job of at least trying to fix after Juan Soto left. Or you say, we are not leaving an out on the table this year. We're going to make sure we have there will be Gold Glove caliber players all over this infield. So not many good options. Also, the Yankees don't have much to trade, which is why they gave up nothing for Cody Bellinger and why they've essentially been inactive in talks otherwise. So they got to get creative. They got to figure it out.
Yeah, and that offense first move in the infield, I guess, would be like Brett Boone. They're into Marcus Giles. There are no offensive second baseman anymore, except Brandon Lowe.
Dan Uggla?
Yeah, Dan Uggla would be nice. Remember how many made like 3 errors in the All-Star game? That was ghastly. A couple of infield options, though, that I did want to touch on here, and the comment section is already bringing them up and talking about Michael Massey. I think Michael Massey is an awesome fit. The ballpark fit said he would have had 24 home runs if he played all of his games at Yankee Stadium last year. Obviously, those are all flawed metrics. No one plays all of their games at one stadium, but you are banking on someone to get some home field advantage from Yankee Stadium. You do get a little more of it this year because they're playing 6 games at George M. Steinbrenner Field, which is built like Yankee Stadium, except for the weather conditions are more conducive to power because you're in sunny Florida. So anybody you're trying to grab as a good Yankee Stadium fit, you got a porch down there too. So you've got 87 home games. Like, I don't know.
Something like that.
That ain't bad, to be honest. So
I think the Royals might move him.
Well, he has only played second base last year.
Yeah.
Jonathan India in his 4-year career has only played second base or DH'd. So they go ahead and get Jonathan India. And I think your thought is, maybe we can move somebody to the outfield. Maybe we can move Massey around. And yeah, sure. But you're going to have to move somebody, and it's probably not going to be the incumbent or it probably is going to be the incumbent because it's probably not going to be Jonathan India, who I don't think you got to experiment with. So had me wondering why we didn't just make the move for Jonathan India, given the eventual pitching depth that we had. Maybe it was the timing of the whole thing where we didn't have Max Fried at that moment, so we didn't know how much we had to play with. And then afterward, he was already gone. So shout out to the Royals for getting that done early. But I really like Massey as a lefty swinger. Surprisingly, he seems like an athletic, versatile guy, but he doesn't play off second, and he stole 1 base last year. So maybe
he's open to playing left field.
Yeah, maybe he's not that guy, but the more guys you get that could be chess pieces, the better. I like Massey a lot. Edward Julien, there's been a lot of Twins talk because the Twins have a bunch of versatile players. They have Brooks Lee, their 2022 first rounder, was up a little bit last year. Wasn't very good, but you got to find room for him. Austin Martin, what do they think he is? I mean, that's not someone I want the Yankees to make a move on, but it's someone who the Twins have to find either playing time for, or they have to figure out how to get rid of him because, they got a crunch. They got Royce Lewis healthy. Hopefully they got Carlos Correa. We've obviously talked about what happens if we absorb Correa's money, or is there any way for us to get Royce Lewis? But I wonder, and they've got a 28-year-old rookie. I wonder if there's any way to get Julien, and Willie Castro comes up all the time. He played center for them. He played second for them. He was an all-star last year, but he had a 102 OPS plus by the end of the year. Definitely not an offense first option. But Julien, I'm struggling to figure out what happened to him. And if you're a Twins fan and you can let me know why the regression hit, please do so. The only real injury concern,
it all just fell apart, right?
The only injury concern I can see last year is getting bruised in the wrist with a hit by pitch in spring training. Maybe that throws off your mechanics for a little bit and you can't get back to it. But he went into last year as maybe a platoon guy who thought he could rise to the occasion and start facing lefties as well as righties. By the end of the year, he kind of faced nobody. He hit in the 190s at the big league level, and he hit in the 220s against the side he supposedly could hit. But he was in the top 2% in terms of patience and walk percentage in 2023. In 109 games, he hit 263 with a 381 OBP and 16 homers. He's a launch angle specialist too, which plays well on the short porch. He's in the mid 80s percentile wise for launch angle sweet spot. So if he is lifting balls as a lefty hitter at Yankee Stadium to right field, you would have to imagine that helps him find the power again. He was just all the metrics he ranked super highly in 2023 and just didn't rank very well in limited sample size last year. You can't really do much to justify a 199 average, though he did still get on base, 292 OBP. He really confused me. 26-year-old former top prospect. I mean, this is what the Yankees do. They go get guys like Edouard Julien, whether they're squeezed out or not. It's like the Didi Gregorius move. It's like top prospect, top 100 guy, comes to the majors, can't hit, can field. Try him again. He can't hit, he can field. Okay, well, there's still some shine on the name because we've read him in prospect lists. But also, what does he do well? We'll take a chance on him. We'll roll the dice. He comes to New York, and he's, a championship piece on a team that probably should have won the World Series in 2017. He ended up finding his power stroke here. It took a little while. Remember when he was here in 2014? He was Jeter's replacement. He just kind of couldn't hit and also kind of couldn't field, and he hit singles sometimes. You're like, I don't get this. Eventually, we got it. Julien could be that kind of guy. He confuses me, though, and I'd love for a Twins fan to reach out and be like, here's what was up with him. I just don't know. But Ian Hamilton for Julien, we have a lot of relievers all of a sudden, and we need some of these lefties. Mark Leiter Jr. for Julien. Like, we can sacrifice some righty relievers as long as we sign Chafin, sign Hill, maybe sign both. So I don't know.
Fine.
I'm curious. Moving on from the infield, what is your next focal point?
The trade deadline. When it comes, I know I'm looking a little bit too far. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but these last few seasons, with the exception of 2021, which now we can look back on and probably laugh at because it was not an impactful trade deadline. It just featured two big names in Anthony Rizzo and Joey Gallo that ended up not really doing much.
Never forget Joey Gallo. I certainly will not.
You got to act with aggression at the trade deadline, and I know that sounds obvious and it sounds self-explanatory, but the Yankees don't act with aggression at the trade deadline, and it has done them in countless times. And when they do act with aggression, they don't get a deal done, and then they torpedo Gleyber Torres' mental state and then nearly blow a 15.5 game lead in the AL East in 2022 with 2 months to go in the year. So trade deadline must feature additions to the roster that show clear deficiencies between the start. You don't have to go into opening day with every position solved. I'm a very firm believer in that. I think if you have a competent organization where you have some young, talented players that you want to experiment, or you have a coaching staff that could put certain players in positions to succeed, where you have a front office that knows when to pull the plug on certain things or when to start trying another experiment, then you do not have to go into a given season with 9 defined starters, no one's moving. It's hard to do that every single year anyway, given all the variables in baseball and how difficult it is to build a roster and how difficult it is to mix young players into your rotation and things like that. So if, for example, like we were just talking about the infield before, if they do say, we're going to go with Oswaldo and Oswald Peraza and see what happens in the infield, would I be upset? I wouldn't be upset. I would just say, okay, let's see what happens, but you better have a damn plan come the trade deadline. You better have intel that another team is willing to move off of somebody. You better act in June when you hear buzz that somebody might be on the market that you want to get your hands on. Act with intention, trade actual players of value for actual players of value. Again, sounds dumb, but the Yankees don't do it. Outside of the Juan Soto deal, which still you could argue did not really feature any impact players going to San Diego. We could argue Michael King all day, but 1 full year as a starter, I don't really count that as anything like detrimental in terms of a loss. And then a backup catcher and some pitcher filler, like, I don't know. To me, everybody called that a blockbuster. I know it was a blockbuster because Juan Soto was involved. It wasn't a blockbuster for any other reason. The Padres were trying to recoup depth and find some value in the acquisitions, and I think they ended up doing that, which is great. It's a deal that worked out for both sides, in my opinion. But I want to see, like, last offseason, if you could have done Spencer Jones for Corbin Burns, in hindsight, you obviously do it. We sat here and we said, that's ridiculous based on all the other trade packages we looked at. And I think that argument is probably still valid because there is the Yankees tax and no team wants to make the Yankees that much better without making them pay. But at this point, you've learned you got to pay. It's just the way it is for the Yankees and Brian Cashman. And last year was the year to do it. because you were only guaranteed 1 year of Juan Soto, which ended up being true. He's gone. He's on the Mets for 15 years. You had one full season of one of the best players of his generation. And I wouldn't say you blew it, but you definitely didn't pull out all the stops to make it a memorable one. It ended up an embarrassment. So this year, don't want to get ahead of myself because I want the roster problems solved sooner rather than later. But trade deadline needs, and hey, if you want to surprise me before opening day, do it. Trade top prospects with pedigree. Trade big names off the big league roster and get something you need in return that's going to help you from day one in 2025.
I love the comment saying we should trade for Ezekiel Duran or Josh Smith from Texas in exchange for a reliever. Like, is that a troll? That's got to be a troll. Yeah, those are solid players. Josh Smith is a better one. You know what? Not a bad fit right now. There was no fit in the summer of 2021, but now there kind of is. I want to. This all does tie into. I already mentioned bullpen lefties. I don't really need to hammer that. We need those, and I'd rather do that sooner rather than later than take care of the infield a bit down the line. But I do think we need one of my resolutions is to just remind myself as often as I can that this is not a bad team.
Yeah,
they undoubtedly need a bat, and there's no sugarcoating that. And if they do start the year with DJ LeMahieu and Oswald Peraza and Oswaldo Cabrera, then yeah, I'll be a little bit upset. Those are bench, they can find a bench out of those guys. But those guys in the starting lineup, yeah, I would sour on the Yankees prospects a bit, and I would understand that they are probably saying exactly what we just said. I guess we can figure it out by the trade deadline. The American League's kind of weak. The slower we start, it doesn't really matter. We can find our way by the end of May. We can definitely find our way by midsummer. We can get rolling into the postseason. You're going to hear some it's right in front of us as this year, and you're going to be like, God damn it. And then you're going to be like, but it is, though, because it was last year, and the AL is still just as bad this year. So that sucks, but it is true. That said, this is not a god-awful group. We were spoiled by Juan Soto, and for good reason. Aaron Judge is the best hitter in baseball. Juan Soto's top 3, and there's nobody like Juan Soto. And I know I said I'd never mention him again, but the experience was pretty singular. It was great to have that guy, but it was great to have those two guys. We did not have a team. We got some comments on the last show when we talked about Glaber leaving that said we should talk about Anthony Volpe's offense. You're right. Anthony Volpe has not been an offensive player so far, and his contributions have been entirely batting average on balls in play based. Like when one fluctuates, so does his actual production. He's a hitter whose offense he rarely makes his own offense. It's like speed based. It's a lot of singles at this point. He stopped selling out for power on purpose last year. I'm curious to see what he looks like when he comes back. But yeah, there are holes. We don't know what Jason Dominguez is. We don't know if Paul Goldschmidt will bounce back to that 115, 120 WRC plus midpoint, or if he's just going to kind of be an average hitter now. But we're going to figure that out. And right now, the projections seem to believe that this current Yankees team, Steamer says they're projected for the most home runs in baseball. Now, a lot of that is Aaron Judge and Carlos Stanton staying healthy, I'm sure, but 245 home runs projections right now, 4 more than the Atlanta Braves. And you're talking about areas where there's uncertainty. Volpe, I would bet on Volpe hitting more home runs next year because I think he saw the version of himself where he didn't sell out for power last year. And I think he figured things out in the postseason, and I hope he can extrapolate that and turn that into a regular season. But either way, I think he's going to be selling out for power a bit more next year. Dominguez over Verdugo, even if Dominguez is not the elite guy we think he could be from day one, he's going to hit more home runs than Alex Verdugo, I would imagine. If he doesn't, then great. Hand up. I'll be here to take my medicine. But I would say probably an upgrade there. And then I think an uptick in power from Austin Wells, who was by and large very good last year, but struggled in April, struggled in May, found himself, and then really struggled in September and October, late to things he wasn't late to before. I sort of feel like I want to blame the hit by pitch there against the Cardinals, that maybe he Edward Julien'd himself. Maybe he cut himself into tiny little pieces when he got hit by a baseball. I don't know, but either way, I would anticipate more power from Wells, not less. And that's where these projections come from. Full year of Jazz Chisholm. He's a better player than the guys he replaced. So Gleyber Torres last year during the regular season, what did he give you? Like eventually he found himself. And in the postseason, he was steady, unspectacular, but steady. I think that right now, this is a team that can use an upgrade in the infield and can look for upgrades at the trade deadline. Every good team should. But this is a good baseball team. They're favored to win the American League right now, not because they are partially because they're in a somewhat underwhelming American League and there are no teams that are coming and taking it from them right now, but also because they won the American League last year and they have a more well-rounded lineup this year than they did last year. Missing Juan Soto, very sad, but it's an offense that could use a bopper that doesn't, it's incomplete, but pretty great. And pitching wise, bullpen wise, they have Devin Williams capping the bullpen in place of the guy who blew the most saves in baseball last year. They have Max Fried in the middle of the rotation. Luis Gil now is way different than he was at the start of last season. Clark Schmidt's someone that was the Yankees' best starting pitcher through mid-May last year and then got hurt, was unable to find his footing again, or at least give them length. Like, Carlos Rodon changed his Yankees tenure's trajectory last year. I think this is a really good baseball team. And so I think you need to sit back and remind yourself, they're not just, there's a chance they get, right now, are they better prepared to beat the National League champion than they were last year? I think they are better prepared to beat that team, but I still think the NL champion is likely to be favored unless we see a big emergence from the Yankees and even, taking a level beyond what we're expecting. But I do think it needs to be said that this is a really good baseball team. And a good portions of last year, they were a bad baseball team that had Juan Soto on them. So I just think that we have to align there. They're good.
They are. And I think we got to trust or at least hope for the developments of the younger players that we talked about. Anthony Volpe still had a, underwhelming year offensively, but we saw the flashes. Defense improved. He got the big game experience in the postseason through the World Series run. I think that's valuable. First, hopefully, full season for Jason Dominguez. First full season, like true full season for Austin Wells. He wasn't really unleashed until mid-July of last year. So if those guys can do what maybe a semblance of what they're projected to do, this team's going to be in good shape. My final one, though, is just to be nice to everybody who's leaving. Just be a nice guy. Gotta have good vibes going into 2025. Gleyber Torres is gone. I know he frustrated all of us. He frustrated me the most. Gotta wish him well with the Tigers. Hopefully the change of scenery helps him. Hopefully he could rebuild his value and get the contract that he believes he deserves after next offseason or after this offseason. Anthony Rizzo, the free agency predictions are looking grim for him. I think the last one was a Marlins prediction from either an insider or CBS Sports or something. Anthony Rizzo's run with us was incredibly frustrating, and part of it was affected due to a freak injury. And I think a lot of the frustration that was taken out on him was essentially the team's fault. Shouldn't have been playing him, shouldn't have welcomed him back after a broken forearm, shouldn't have welcomed him back after broken fingers, but this is the Yankees. This is how they're stubborn. You go through the list of, Alex Verdugo probably gone, really didn't enjoy his year here outside of the first month, but, guys are just trying to make a living. And I know that a lot of the times we're on here, we're yelling about various things. We're lamenting with people on social media. We're talking about all these frustrations that stem from either poor play or poor energy or whatever you want to call it, because various things occur throughout the year that we find a way to nitpick. But all you can do when all is said and done is wish everybody luck, and or if they're still with us, hope that they have a bounce back year or build off of whatever they were able to last year. So if we could bring some good vibes back and have it come full circle, it's that. Try to be nicer. Obviously, there's going to be moments of anger and frustration and heated debate, but when we're sitting here relaxed and we're seeing people move around and we're trying to project what's going to happen next year, just try to be a little bit kinder.
Yeah, it's a good call. And I also wanted to resolve for me just to not get bent out of shape about Gleyber Torres' departure. Yeah. I think are two sides of the same coin. And obviously goes hand in hand with the infield discussion and plenty of the discussions from earlier, and reminding yourself that this team actually does not suck. Yeah, don't roast on the way out. Don't pretend like we got nothing from Gleyber Torres. But at the same time, I can't overreact to him going to the Detroit Tigers or growing a beard or act like, I understand he meant different things to different people, and he might have been your favorite player. And when your favorite player leaves your favorite team, then absolutely, you have free reign to be emotional. And I've had my fair share of emotional takes And I thought Dante DiVincenzo leaving the Knicks like 3 months ago was going to torpedo their chemistry. And I didn't like Karl Anthony Towns from afar. I didn't understand anything about his game. I didn't know how aggressive he was. Like, you don't get a fair picture of the man without watching him on a daily basis. The Knicks are, sorry, Dante, much better off with the current lineup and without Dante DiVincenzo and without Julius Randle. I didn't know that at the time. I wish I had. Now I do. Again, when I'm wrong, you got to be wrong. But for Gleyber Torres, for me, it's like if you're overly emotional and that's playing into your reaction, then I completely understand that. And if you're still attached to the Gleyber we saw in 18 and 19, absolutely. And then if you think that he was overhated as a Yankee, I'll say you are right. He should not have been, blamed for this roster's deficiencies like he was Albert Abreu and Franchi Cordero. But at the same time, the defense was a major problem. The lapses in judgment were a major problem. And when the offense isn't top tier to pair with that, it's, say it with me, a major problem. So I'll miss what Gleyber could have been, and I'll wish him well, and I'm going to be kind to him. I'm not going to flame Gleyber Torres next year and burn his beard off. But at the same time, I can't act like the Yankees are a money laundering operation because they couldn't match $15 million for Gleyber Torres, or that they didn't want to. I definitely don't think it's that they couldn't stomach paying that money, and it's certainly not that they couldn't afford it. They just didn't have the interest, and I think it's okay for them to have not had the interest. Now, again, talk to me if they're too patient in the infield market, and talk to me if they go, okay, great, well, we're not going to pay Gleyber that, but we'll pay Nolan Arenado this. And okay, then I will adjust my resolution, and I will say retroactively I was wrong on that. I vowed to say something that I couldn't stand up to by the time we got to the middle of February or the middle of March. But we'll see. For now, that's where I'm at. We want to wrap this show by talking about another rumor that you uncovered from the holiday weekend.
I uncovered it.
The 13-day weekend. Like, I can't figure out what days anything is. Somebody wrote in an article I was editing earlier today that something had to be done by Friday. And I was like, sorry, dude, you're way off. The deadline is January 3rd. That's Tuesday. And then I was like, oh, no, wait, actually, that's tomorrow is Friday, and that's 100% accurate. So that's where I'm at. I don't know what day is anything, and I don't know where news is being produced, but you did find a potential avenue for the Yankees. I mean, you found someone else musing on a potential avenue for the New York Yankees to get Marcus Stroman's money off the books, and it was interesting because I think this has gone basically untouched in the discussion universe. Which, by the way, are we in the discussion universe, the Marvel discussion universe? I'm not sure, but I haven't seen anybody touch on this yet.
No, this is nuts. So Pete Caldera of NorthJersey.com. Is that where he used to? Didn't he write like the Bergen something?
Bergen record
Bergen
for sure.
record?
Yeah, he's been around forever.
Yeah, now
he's like when the Soto stuff was going down and everybody was like, "Is Bill Madden legit?" Yeah, he's actually in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Like Pete Caldera has been a beat writer forever.
Yeah, Pete Caldera is a guy. We like Pete. We use his stuff whenever it pops up. He very much has a finger on the pulse of what's going on with the Yankees. He submitted this morning, 25 Yankees predictions for 2025. And number 2 on this list was so long to Marcus Stroman. And the body of that said, seeking to unload Marcus Stroman's $18 million contract for 2025, GM Brian Cashman will trade the right-hander back to the willing-to-spend Toronto Blue Jays for 2 lottery pick prospects. That is insane. I know the Blue Jays are trying to spend. They are the ones who traded Marcus Stroman away, probably to avoid paying him. Now they're going to take him on in this situation. At an incredibly elevated price after arguably what you could say is one of Marcus Stroman's worst full season showings since being at the big league level, based on how everything kind of spiraled for him. I think at some point you're probably looking at a Marcus Stroman trade, and I think there are 2 options here. You are looking at 2.5. You're looking at a pre-opening day trade where another team is willing to eat money. So this is the least likely scenario, right? Pre-opening day trade, team eats all of the money, Yankees attach a prospect, top 10 prospect to the deal to make it happen. Don't think that's going to happen. I'm just saying it's possible because we've seen crazier things happen before. Second is Yankees trade him. They eat, $5 to $8 million on the deal. They free up a spot in the rotation. They give somebody else an opportunity. They use that money to bring in, I don't know, whatever else they need. We talk about these needs all the time on the podcast. Third option is, and hear me out here, you keep them for opening day. You're going with some sort of 6-man rotation because remember, there's going to be innings issues with a number of guys, right? Luis Heel, we saw him kind of hit a wall in the middle of last season. He did rebound. He did come back. It was impressive, but don't know what you can expect of him in terms of another full season workload out of that role. Clark Schmidt missed 3.5 months and then showed that he couldn't provide length and effectiveness when immediately upon his return and even a month after his return. So something there. And then you have obviously the Nestor Cortez departure, which is where I guess you would suspect Stroman could slip in as that, last guy in the rotation, eating innings, maybe jumping back and forth to the bullpen. You bring in Max Fried there. So it's Cole, Rodon, Fried, but also you kind of don't know what to expect out of Carlos Rodon. It was an improvement off of 2023, but 2024, I don't think instilled a lot of confidence in everybody. So maybe you hold on to Stroman for opening day. You give yourself that pitching depth that you need through the trade deadline. Maybe he puts forth 10 to 15 okay starts. Then another team says, all right, now you're talking. We saw him rebound a little bit. There's a little bit money coming off his deal after you ate, the first 3 to 4 months of it. Let's talk a trade. The Yankees act there, and then they either have their solidified rotation, maybe Will Warren improves, and they can bring him in as that last guy, 6-starter bullpen option. I don't know. But those are what I see as the realistic options. I do not think there is a scenario where Marcus Stroman is traded for straight up for all of his money, and then the Yankees get lottery ticket prospects in return. That seems crazy to me, but then again, Pete knows more than I do, so I will defer to him here.
And the rest of Pete's predictions, which are super fun, involve the season where the Yankees sort of start in the doldrums and then work their way back to relevance and trade for Carlos Correa, and Alex Bregman re-signs with Houston, and then Yankees beat the Tigers in the DS on a Paul Goldschmidt grand slam and then lose the ALCS to the Astros. It kind of sounds like a very fun season, and then again at the end, like wait, why did I do this whole season kind of season? Like what? I was having a good time making a second half surge and winning the first playoff round, and then why in God's name did it have to end in Houston again? But you know what? Again, Pete knows more than we do. His predictions may be more of a fun narrative unfolding rather than the reality that we're about to see. Hopefully, I don't want another loss in Houston in 6 games in the ALCS. That's really not what I want. I would probably right now. Would you rather lose the ALCS to Houston, but on January 2nd, that's what's going to happen, or would you rather just not make the playoffs at all? Because I honestly think I'm in the first bucket.
Damn, man, I don't know. I just want a regular season.
I think I'd rather have a summer off.
100%. Like, we've seen abbreviated playoff runs that extend the year by a couple of weeks, and you're just like, this sucks. Yeah. I'd rather not have this. I'd rather be out of it in August. To be honest, I'd rather be out of it by July and just say, all right, do we have assets to trade off at the deadline? Can we prepare for 2026 at this point? I know that's not the goal. I know I don't want that to happen at all. But if I have to choose, that's the avenue, because then it gives you some sort of intention at the trade deadline to do something productive, as opposed to what they've done these last few years, which 2023, Keenan Middleton, and that was it. 2024, apparently thought your team was good enough to acquire next to nothing, fake assets. Jazz Chisholm, obviously notwithstanding, but again, everybody knew that wasn't enough based on how the NL was looking and shaping up as we were getting ahead into the dog days of summer. And we saw the sell-off job that Cashman did back in 2016. Remember that? That was actually pretty good, as much as I hate to say it, because it was depressing. If they had used the assets better from the Andrew Miller trade, Justice Sheffield, Clint Frazier, JP Fireeyes, and Ben Heller, maybe we're having a different conversation. If Gleyber Torres turned out to be a cornerstone shortstop instead of a barely outside top 10 second baseman. Maybe that's different. If Aroldis Chapman didn't blow every big game known to man. Yeah. So those two guys were traded that deadline, and it looked like the it kind of kickstarted 2017, changed the energy a little bit, got them ready for that year, and it kind of paved the way for this window. So if we're looking at doomsday, it better be that kind of doomsday. It better not be, out in the wild card round or some bullshit like that, or fighting down to the wire and barely making the playoffs. They cannot afford that this year.
Look at us. More positive resolutions for 2025 is how we start. And by the end, we're like, I hope we're out of it by July, so we don't have to think about a sham playoff run. Well, look, I think we're going to see, we had a lot of comments saying like, are the Yankees going to make a move this week? When do they strike? I think you are going to see a relief move next week, or if not next week, the week after, certainly. But we're getting close. I do think they strike on some relief target next week. Infielder, though, I think you're going to have to wait a while. I am not of the camp that they're going to enter spring training with their current options. I do think they're going to swing a trade before too long, but I don't think that time is now. I think the markets they're going to wait out some markets. They're going to see what's up. But I do think there's a reliever on the New York Yankees next week who is not there right now, and we will talk about him. We'll be back on Monday afternoon, 2 o'clock Eastern, as well as Thursday, which is another day when we do this podcast, 2 o'clock Eastern. Then as well, normal week, not a holiday. Y'all are going to be working 9 to 5 every day, our listeners, I assume. So are we, and beyond. So no more interruptions, just baseball. Offseason still in full swing. Plenty of big names have yet to land. So join us. We'll talk about them as they do. Hopefully some contracts get resolved this weekend. Even it would be nice. I'm kind of sick of talking about the same names. I want to spin off on some reality. I want to talk contracts. I want to talk details. We'll see you here when we have those to talk about. I'm Adam Weiner, Thomas Carinante, or you can find me on Twitter at Adam Weiner. But I say maybe you shouldn't. I don't know if you should, but if you want to, you could. Thomas Carinante, where can the people find you?
I am at Tommy's_takes. We are both at the official Yanks Go Yard account at Yanks Go Yard FS. Folks, Happy New Year. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're new here, welcome. Come on in, hit the chat. We try to magnify some comments while we can, talk to you guys during the pod. We hope to do more of that as always. Head on over to yanksgoyard.com. Don't forget it. It's where all the content is. We got that humming every single day. And we're trying to keep everybody informed, even when the offseason tries to get a little quiet on us, and then bam, 3 moves happen in succession. We're scrambling for information. You got to be coming here consistently. We keep you informed the entire way. And of course, we come to you live every Monday and Thursday. So we will see you on Monday. Have yourselves a good weekend. Happy New Year. Let's go Yanks. Let's do something.
We sure will see you then. One final question. We got a comment predicting how many starts Clay Holmes will have in 2025. I think this is a fun place to end the show. I actually
11.
do think he's going to be a full-time starter. I think he's going to
fuck that.
I think he's going to get hurt, but I think he's going to make 19 starts and he'll battle injury.
I will go with 11 and he's back to the bullpen.
Yeah.
And 6th inning bullpen guy. Mets made a mistake here.
You know what? If we're leaving Juan Soto in 2024, though, you know who we're definitely fucking leaving in 2024? Clay Holmes. Not going to be part of this conversation next year. But thank you for the question. We will see everybody next Monday, 2 o'clock Eastern, right here or on all podcast platforms. Yankees, Happy New Year. Let's do it again.